All right, guys, I've been waiting on this one for a minute. I really have. This one's going to be a little bit different than most of the talks that we have. The guest that we have on tonight specializes in a certain field that I feel is something we need to talk about. And if you saw the thumbnail already, you know we're talking about men's mental health and how that pertains to whiskey use and all of the things. We're going to deep dive a lot of it. It could be things you don't want to hear as a man. And this is for women as well. Obviously, it's not just male focused, but since June is Men's Mental Health Month, we want to make sure and expose that a little bit more and get people out there supporting men, because we don't talk about our feelings a whole lot. And that's what this episode's all about. And I have the pleasure to have Psych Man on here. He's going to tell us a little bit about his background, and then we're going to get into the meat and taters of it and really just kind of break this down from our perspective, two male perspectives over here. We're going to break it down, and hopefully you guys find some nuggets out of this. Like I said, I've been working on this for a long time. It's something I'm very passionate about, and I know that Psych Man is too. So without further ado, here he is.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on, Randall.
No problem.
My background is in clinical psychology. So I have a doctorate in psychology, in clinical psychology. And 2 years that I spent, 2 of the years that I spent working on my doctorate, we had required trainings, and I spent 2 years working in 2 different state penitentiaries. And those were all male penitentiaries. And then during my required internship year, I focused on health psychology. And my postdoc fellowship, I focused on primary care psychology. And I have been a primary care psychologist since I became fully licensed, and have been practicing now for 10 plus years.
All right. Awesome. So I'm going to get right into it. I wrote down quite a few questions, some of them pertaining to whiskey topics and whiskey health and things like that, and some of them just generally men's health. And we're talking mental health, but physical health has to do with mental health as well. So I'm going to get started, and then we're just going to have a flowing conversation about it, and we'll see where it leads us. I might not get through all of them. If we do, great. If we don't, we do have lives after this. So my first question is, many of us enjoy a pour of whiskey at the end of the day. Is there a healthy way to frame that ritual as self-care rather than escape?
That's a valid question. You're starting hot right off the top.
Sorry. I don't pull no punches.
I think you have to be careful about phrasing it either way. Certainly not escape. Avoidance. Anytime avoidance is present, that tends to complicate mental health.
Right.
And so escape is definitely not a good term to use there. And I would be careful about phrasing, hey, I'm having this drink for self-care. Because it could become problematic if you're using it too much.
Right.
And so really, I would say, like, use it as this is something I do for pleasure or enjoyment. And it's not the only thing that I'm doing for pleasure or enjoyment.
Right. So having other things in your life other than whiskey, right? You like if you enjoy extracurricular activities, like, I'm going to name some stupid ones just right off the top of my head, like woodworking or gardening or something like that. Or if you're on some sort of team, or if you're a coach for your kids' team or something like that, spending more time into something like that and not using it so much, like you said, as a crutch. That hits, because there is sometimes you're like, and I think we've all done it, right? We've all said, man, it's been a booger of a week. I need a drink. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, I feel. And you could say the opposite.
I think you have to be careful about the I need a drink part right there.
Right? Yes.
It's like, I think I would enjoy a drink, or, hey, a drink would be nice right now. But the I need starts to kind of set up some dependency
Mm-hmm. Okay. See, just and it's all about the way that you say it too, because
Correct.
obviously, if you don't need it, don't take it. That's like this. If it's a need, then there's obviously a problem. But
Right.
yeah, just the way you phrase it as well. Like,
Because
and
if
everybody says it like that.
if you do that enough though, then it becomes ingrained to where it's at the end of the week, I have to have this drink. I have, in
Mm,
order for me to get through this day, I need a drink, right? And
mm,
if that happens so very often, that's when things can become problematic.
right.
Really, and I guess I'm kind of jumping, maybe jumping to the end part almost, but really any kind of whiskey or alcohol should be utilized, I believe, during enjoyable moments or for moments of like relaxation or pleasure. But that's not the only thing
Right.
that needs to be in your life.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And it's difficult for someone like myself where my entire feed, say on Instagram and stuff, is whiskey people doing whiskey things, right? And I have literally tried so hard, especially recently, because I do a lot of whiskey content. So there is a
Mhm.
lot of whiskey things going on. And so,
Yeah,
like, I was looking back through my photos just in my phone, right? And every other photo was a whiskey or somebody, a distillery or something like that. And I'm like, okay, that's got to go. Like, I need more pictures of my kids.
yeah,
Good Lord.
yeah, yeah.
Pictures of my kids. So that leads me to the next question.
Okay.
And which is, why is men's mental health still so neglected today?
It is getting better.
Yeah.
It is certainly getting better. I can see a drastic improvement, or increase, I would say, in the amount of men that are coming in for mental health
Okay.
treatment from the beginning of my career to where I am now. It has really increased, and I'm grateful for that, and I'm happy for that. And oftentimes early in my career, I would get guys that would come in because their significant others,
Mm,
like they gave them an ultimatum. I have to do this, or they're leaving.
right.
And now a lot of the quality of that has changed, where guys are coming in and it's like, I need this. I need to
Mm,
change something. I need to do something different.
right.
Um, I think, unfortunately, a lot of culture and society has kind of set guys up to, hey, it's not okay to talk about your
Mm,
feelings. I mean, that
mm,
was happened a lot, and depending on where you grew up, even those cultures, not just for men but cultures in general, where, hey, we don't share our what's going on with us
mm,
outside of the immediate family. All
right.
those things have to stay within the immediate family.
Right. And
uh,
that kind of lines up my second question in that why do so many men just suffer in silence? They sit there and they take all of this burden, not only because I guess this could be the alpha male a prototype, if you want to call it that. But like a lot of men are still the providers. If they want to have that family unit type thing, are still the main provider. They are still doing all the things. And why is it that they just can't? And from what you're saying, they're going out there and they're seeking
they're
help. But
starting to.
why? But why are we, and I put myself in that too.
Yeah,
Before I got help, I was very stubborn about
yeah,
even talking to my own wife
yeah,
about
yeah.
issues. And why do you think that is? Is it because of we were told as children, man up? You know what I mean? Man
I
up
mean,
and
I think that's part of it, but I will be perfectly honest. Like, I've had to do my own mental health work
oh
as
yeah,
well.
absolutely.
I don't know how many times my wife has told me, "You're a psychologist. You should know better than to say that." And so we're all guilty of those things, and I think some of it is, um, are a little bit of ego, a little bit of pride goes into that. Definitely a lot of kind of anxiousness and fear
Mm,
underlying plays into that, to where, man, I'm really trying to provide for this family, and help other people. If I acknowledge that there's kinks in that armor, then is that going to totally kind of just break me down to where now I am not the person that I need to be for my family, my friends, my community, and things like that. And so there is a lot of anxiousness and fear. That's where some of that avoidance kind of comes into play. It can be scary talking to, especially a stranger that you don't know.
Right.
It can be scary to kind of start talking about some depression or anxiousness or difficulties that you're having. So
Right.
I think that's a lot of really trying to stay away from that fear part.
Right. And do you think that men are afraid of looking weak if they admit that they are struggling?
Yes, I think that's a part of it, because we're having to work so hard throughout the days and weeks to provide for the family that we don't like to entertain any form of weakness, because that can distract us, that can get in the way of other things that we're doing.
Right. Yeah.
But and that's where the nice thing is, if you're coming into a mental health provider, like, it's fully confidential if you're going to a licensed mental health provider. And so the things that you work on in that room can stay in that room or between your significant other as much as you wanted to.
Right.
And I think that's one of the big stigmas to try to get over, is like, if you come in there and talk for a little bit, you're not going to completely fall apart the rest of the week. There might be some moments in there to where you experience those emotions in that room. But our job as the mental health providers is to end up kind of lifting you up and getting you through those moments. And so it's not all on you.
Right. Right. Exactly. Because, like, I can only speak for myself, but there's sometimes when I make a mistake, or I do something that I know I probably shouldn't have done, make what we call a foolish mistake. And then I just beat myself up over it. You just continue to, like, beat yourself up over it. Man, I shouldn't have done that. Why did I'm so stupid, and of course that's all self-worth and all of the things that,
self-worth and perfectionism is
right. And a lot of times, and it's pretty unfortunate, and I don't mean to bash anybody's parents or anything, but I, as a parent right now, I can say this because it's true. Sometimes parents are just tired and they don't have time. They don't have the time or the energy to really show you how you really should be acting. And it makes it really difficult to kind of, at that point, as a parent, as a father, you have to man up a little bit more even, and be like, even though I'm tired or I'm frustrated at the situation or I'm angry with you right now, this is a learning lesson for you so that you don't create this animosity towards yourself in the future. And that's where it's really difficult, is kind of getting out of your own way a little bit and talking to people like yourself, like a professional about it, because you can talk to yourself in the mirror all day long, but guess what? That person is not going to talk back to you. It's not going to give you the greatest feedback.
Otherwise, you have more serious things.
Yes, that is true. That is true. If it talks back, we got a whole other episode on that one. Yeah. Okay. So, oh man, let's talk about when alcohol becomes a coping mechanism and the warning signs that it's no longer healthy.
Okay. That's a really important one there. So you're talking about kind of red flags, right? And that's where some of that mindset goes of, oh man, if you're thinking, starting to think throughout the day, I just can't wait to get home and have that drink. That's a sign right there. That's a little bit concerning, I would say. It's not end all be all. And so none of these warning flags, like, if you've experienced these at some point or another, that's not necessarily problematic. It's when you're having these red flags consistently throughout almost every day, and it's been ongoing for several weeks in a row, to where it's getting to the point where it's impacting relationships, functioning outside of the home, where you're sacrificing time away from other activities, and it's more devoted on, I want to have this drink. And so some of those red flags, like I was mentioning, if you're thinking throughout the day, I just can't wait to get home to have this drink. If you're now feeling out, a couple of drinks just isn't cutting it every night, and you're needing to drink more each night to where you're reaching a certain physical feeling. So you're not able to just have one drink and then put it away, or a couple of drinks and put it away. If you're starting to have more arguments, if your significant other is like concerned, hey, you're doing this too much. Whenever you start hearing some of those things, I would start being a little bit more concerned. So heavy alcohol in men is considered more than 15 drinks in a week. That's considered heavy alcohol use.
Okay.
And so if you're kind of counting that up throughout the week of like, man, I'm really drinking more than 15 drinks in a week, I would be a little bit more concerned there. Or if you're having more than 1 or 2 episodes throughout the week of 5 or more drinks in one sitting.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Like it'd be like going on a bender, basically.
Correct. Yeah. More than 5 drinks would be considered. That would be considered binge drinking. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. How do men typically rationalize unhealthy drinking habits when their inner dialogues, and what can their inner dialogue tell them to look out for?
I mean, we see it a lot in television and movies. So you see a lot of those things. It's also very common in early 20s to have periods, where, hey, I'm drinking a little bit more during that stretch. It's pretty typical to have heavy alcohol use going on there. Where it becomes a little bit more concerning is once you get into your mid 20s and you're still keeping up with that same habit. That's where I'd be a little bit more concerned. And so I think the rationalization is like, hey, I'm handling this. It's fine. I feel much better afterwards. You're kind of looking for all those senses. It's not getting in the way of me going to work. So what's the big deal? You start kind of giving those excuses to yourself.
Right. And also something that I've seen here lately on Instagram and other places is people really like condoning over drinking. There's this one guy, I don't follow him. He just pops up every once in a while, and he is literally, chugging 5 beers in a row, or the people that take an entire bottle of whiskey and put a straw in it and just chug and it's like they're condoning that, and they're making it like funny almost, and it's not funny. Like it's one thing, and the whole stigma on alcohol in itself is really strange, because it is the only drug, and I call alcohol a drug. It is the only drug that is infantilized by the world. They love it. The world loves alcohol for some reason. People are like, oh, have a glass of wine with dinner, which I have no problem with. I'm not saying, obviously, I'm the dude, right? But I have no problem with that. But like, they make it like a center place thing. But like, and I don't condone this either, but let's say you smoked marijuana. Like, it's no big deal to smoke a joint before you eat dinner, whatever. Like, it's the same thing. It's just like, say, hey, if I want to shoot some heroin right before we go out to eat, it's fine, and that's what I'm saying, though. It's a drug is a drug, right? But they tend to put alcohol up on this pedestal to where it's like, it makes it almost like everybody's doing it. Why not just do it, right? Because we just got back from the beach. What was everybody doing at the beach? Literally everyone. They were all drinking. Everyone. Yeah. And every place you go has a liquor license. The convenience stores, you see people just packing out the beers out of there, which that's fine. Go have fun. It's what it's, whatever. But
again, like, is that a one-time thing, or is that a more habitual? That's usually where I get most concerned. Is it habitual?
Right. Because you see these people and you're like, okay, that dude, you could tell he does this quite a bit, because I as a plumber, our job is pretty strenuous. It's pretty hard on us. And this is not to throw shade at any of my former workmates, but they would get off of work and I'd be driving home and I'd see them stop at the convenience store and get a 20-pack, a case of beer. And then the next day they were getting a case of beer again. And then the next day they were getting a case. And half of the time, and then Fridays we'd break off a little early and everybody sit around the shop and drink beer. All right. So I stayed a couple times, as I was in my early 20s. Why not? I'll stay. I had one beer and I'm like, bro, I still got to go home. These guys would kill 2-3 cases of beer just sitting around BSing, which is fine. It's fun. Like they're friends. Everybody's having a good time. Right. But I'm like, for one, obviously drinking and driving is not cool. But also like that y'all haven't eaten and you've literally pounded 20 beers, which they have such a high tolerance. It takes that many to get them where they need to go. But it's like
another red flag right there is your tolerance level. Right.
And I will say, and this is not a good thing. Good Lord. I can't believe I was just fixing to say it. Ever since going through cancer and all the health issues that went along with that, my tolerance has been so low, like the lowest. Like I could literally, the other day, this has been a couple weeks ago, I guess, I made one old fashioned. I was like, I'm done. I don't need anything else. Like if I have one more, I feel like it might be too much. And I'm like, what in the world? I put 1.5 ounces in there. Like you would think, I mean, I'm the whiskey guy. I should be able to hold a little more than 1.5 ounces. But it's one of those things. Like if your body's not tolerant, which, man, then we can go into that. Like I've said in multiple shows before, alcohol is a poison, but it's the only poison that your body actually likes, which is kind of strange. So it's, I don't know. It's building up a tolerance that in itself is like,
and I think that goes back to one of your other questions of like, why do guys do this? That's something that I've heard a lot too of. How much alcohol can you handle? And oh man, you're a lightweight. You're already like drunk after 2 or 3, and people get like, kind of like put down for that. And it was almost seen as, wow, look how awesome of a guy you are. You can handle a 12-pack and seem perfectly fine.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how they get their cool from that. But that you drink. It happens all the time, and especially in like the college crowd. Correct. And obviously it has morphed into later years as well, because coming from a very German town, they drink some beer around here. Okay. And I mean, and if you're not drinking, they're like, what the hell's wrong with you? And you're like, what? I'm having some water. It's hot. I need water. So I said something earlier. You often hear the word man up, right? We often hear that, or be strong. But how would you redefine those ideas in a healthier way?
I mean, I would say being strong is being able to not be afraid of anything, right? So strength is really kind of being able to confront fears. And if you're avoiding your emotions, then you're not really all that strong. You're doing a lot of mental work to avoid some of those low moments, low moods, anxious moods. And so strength is really being able to acknowledge and confront some things that might be troubling you.
Yeah. And the next question I had right there, which is perfect. It's almost like we scheduled this or something. Can vulnerability actually be a form of strength? And how do you begin showing up in the way without feeling exposed? Like being vulnerable is very hard for a man, especially. And how do you do that without being like, people call you a panty waist or a mama's boy or you're whipped. They say that a lot.
I think you have to be cautious about how much vulnerability you're showing and to who you're showing that to. So I don't think just kind of sharing everything with every single person you come in contact with, that may not be the best. Okay. Right. That's not necessarily the safest. And sometimes I've seen folks that I've worked with, they have done that as a way of almost testing the other person. Is this going to be safe? And that's not really a safe way to handle those moments. And so really vulnerability should happen over time as you become more emotionally intimate with a person.
Right.
Okay. And so just take your time with it. Share little bits here and there. And is the vulnerability being reciprocal? So if that person is also like meeting you at that same level and sharing with you, then that's better to do. And then you're building trust. So you really have to have some trust when you're being completely vulnerable.
Right. Because I mean, obviously you don't want to tell the checker at the grocery store your life story as, as they're getting packaged your groceries.
Like, oh, that person's a little odd. Like what's going on with them? Like, they just exposing all that much.
But also I've seen this in my own personal life with friends that I have. It becomes a lot of times, you want that deeper conversation, right? You don't just want to talk about the weather, how's work, all the things. But a lot of men, especially, are very surface level, and that's all they care to talk about. They don't care to get deeper because they maybe, and this is just my opinion. I am not a trained psychology type therapist guy, but I think it's just they're masking. They don't want to dig deeper, or they have dug deeper and it hurt, so they were like, I'm covering that back up. And it makes it really hard to have a male friendship and companionship with someone that does not want to go deep, because it just makes it really difficult. And it's with family and friends and everybody. It's just very surface level. Like you're not supposed to have feelings. You're a man.
It definitely can be. It should not be.
No.
With some of those things, is the other person that you're talking to, have you kind of checked out and seen, do they want to be vulnerable with me? And so there does need to be it takes two people to have that vulnerability. Otherwise you're just kind of like talking and that person might become overwhelmed. And so you need both parties to kind of be on the same page there. I have fortunately have some friendships and relationships where I can be real and open and honest, because they've been that way with me, but it didn't happen one night. That's over a long time of kind of meeting with them and gauging their interest. Hey, let's talk about this. And then always giving the person permission. Hey, if this is too much, just let me know and we don't have to talk about these things.
And that's a very good point. Like you have to almost, like you said, give permission to the person to talk about things, because maybe they're not ready to talk about it. And you're sitting there, you're having dinner with friends and you're after and you're sitting there talking and the girls are over there, man, they're going deep about everything. And you're like, so your dad beat you when you were young. That sucks. Sorry. How do you manage? How do you go through that? You shouldn't. Yes. No, but you're trying to navigate that, but also you're not trying to be a dummy and you don't want to have dead air and you don't want to sit there. I've already told my whole life, not life story, but my whole story of the week, type thing that I tell everybody. So now I got to, try and find something else to talk about. Next thing you know, we're like old men talking about the dang weather. And I'm like, oh my God, what are we doing? Seriously.
Yeah. I mean, I have some relationships where, hey, we just talk about the weather and that's what that relationship is going to be.
No.
But you should have every man should have some relationship in their life where they can be more open and honest and express those concerns. And it doesn't have to be a large number of people. It could just be 1, 2, 5, like just a handful at most. It doesn't have to be every relationship.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. So let's talk about this. There's a huge bar culture out there. And cigar lounges and whiskey tastings, which I enjoy to do. They have these like bottle share things and stuff like that. They're very often male bonding places, because I'm not saying that women don't drink whiskey, because I've had many women on this podcast that know their way around a whiskey.
I have some friends, some female friends in my life that enjoy whiskey, and they're fun to talk with.
Absolutely. Can these spaces be made safe for mental health talks too? Or is it strictly a whiskey related thing, or can they get deeper? I mean, I know that whiskey is a story in itself, and maybe there's some underlying story that you need to share over that whiskey, because like I say, the whiskey is just a catalyst to a good conversation. So do you think there's space for that in those instances? Obviously, if you're at a bar, it's loud, you're chugging drinks or whatever, probably not the best place. But if you're sitting on the back deck of a cigar lounge having a cigar, which I don't smoke, but if you're having a cigar and talking to somebody, is that a good time to get vulnerable if it's reciprocal?
I would say if it's reciprocal, and you've known that person for a little bit, I don't think that you should kind of saddle up to somebody right next to you that you've never met before, and it's like, hey, we're going to get into some deep stuff, because again, there can be a lot of concerns that goes along with that.
Absolutely.
And so I think those places are fine as long as it's with some established relationships, friendships. Right.
Yeah. You don't want to meet somebody, me doing the thing I do. I have like whiskey tube friends, and like Doc Martinez and Tom the Bourbon Jerk. Like, if I was to meet them, yes, it'd be great to hang out with them and talk to them and stuff like that. But I wouldn't be sitting there talking about these past things. You have to make it. That's one of those things you do with
kind of like, think of it as I'm going to wade into the pool on that.
Yeah.
Like that should take a little bit of time, to where you start off a little bit shallow and then you just kind of slowly make your way down into the deeper end.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to get a little sad. So not me, but the topic. Let's talk about loneliness and isolation. Okay. How does isolation impact men differently than women, especially in middle age and even older? You can go first, then I'll go.
You know what? I'll be honest. I haven't exactly thought about the gender differences between in loneliness as a person is older, because I just look at it across the board. Mm-hmm. Isolation is not a healthy thing.
No, it's not.
And that's for men and women. Mm-hmm. I have not honestly kind of thought about the gender differences there.
Well, okay, then I'll let you think about that for a second, and I'll tell you from my personal experience what I have felt. I'm one of these people, and this is, it's going to be a little self-reflecting, but that's kind of what this show is about as well. I have always been, since a very young age, kind of a loner, kind of one of the guys. I wasn't an only child, but I was the youngest child by a lot. So I played not with myself, but by myself. I did all of these things by myself, and so when I got married, I love my wife to death, but I also still wanted to have me stuff that I did just for myself. Hence the podcast, all these things. And now in my older years, not older, but you know what I mean? I'm a tinker. I'm one of those guys. I can't sit still. I have to be doing something. There's always something to do, right? When you own a farm, a ranch, or whatever you want to call it, there's always something to do, right? So I make it my personal goal to do those things all the time, instead of sitting. And I know, and I've learned through therapy, that sitting in your feelings sometimes is the best way to do it, and not just avoidance. Obviously, that's what that is. But also, like, that is partial isolation as well, because I'm like, I have to be away to do these things. And I always, right. But at the same time, like, I always offer for my kids, my wife, to do the things that, whatever, help me mow the yard, whatever, it's fine. But it's I don't know, like that isolation thing for me is a little therapeutic as well, because then I can go through my thoughts in my head and kind of put them in order, the order I see fit, which could not be right some points. I put it in an order, and then I go relay that information that I've thought of to my significant other, and I'm like, hey, this is what I've been thinking of. What do you think? And then we sit down and have conversation. And I think that, and that we can get into marriage as well if we go in that route. But I think that having a good bouncing board, or to talk to and say, hey, I'm feeling this way. I don't know why, but I'm feeling really anxious right now, or I'm feeling a little bit of anxiety, or I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling sad. But you don't really know why. I mean, we all get that. Like, man, I feel down today. Why do I feel like that? Well, probably because I chugged 6 beers last night. No.
And here's just a little bit of a nugget there. I always encourage people to try to stay away from the why question and ask more what.
Okay.
The why can be really hard to answer. So and that's something that I tell just about every person that I work with, and they want to know, why am I depressed? Why am I anxious? And it's like, okay, what around you, or what are you thinking about is happening? Wow.
Okay. So that might be, and this is going back to something else, but this is a good segue. That might be why whenever I ask some of the distilleries that come on, my first question is why do what you do? Maybe I should phrase it more of, what made you do what you do? Well, instead of doing the why, because I can see how that would be a little bit like, why are you the way you are? Like, why are you like this?
That why can get a little bit overwhelming, and
I can see that.
Sometimes why is really hard to answer.
Right, because maybe you don't know why.
Yeah, exactly.
You might not know the why.
And so then it's like, okay, what? What around me? What am I thinking about? What have I been experiencing lately? What am I ingesting right now? What am I doing? Some of those things. And kind of going back to some of the isolation question, I guess, like as you've been talking about it, I guess why I haven't necessarily thought about the gender differences is because just about every single person that I have treated, male or female, if they've like really struggled with their mental health, at some level they're isolating. And so I don't see this happening just in men, the isolation part, and I don't see it happening just in women. If you're struggling with depression and anxiety, isolation is very common. So that is something that I always look for whenever I'm first meeting a person. Is I want to know what their level of engagement with others is. Does that cause anxiety when they're engaging? Does it help improve their mood? Or did they used to engage a lot and now they're sticking in their bedroom all the time? Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like, there's another thing, and I promise guys, I don't scroll Instagram that much. It's just, sometimes it hits like it should. It's, you always see the memes or whatever of the guy sitting in his garage, listening to Creed, drinking beer. And I'm like, that is isolation, right? That is in itself. It is, and it's not. Like, that's your time.
I'm one of my favorite times is sitting on the back porch. Sometimes I have a drink, but I'm listening to music back there.
No, you're right. I do it. I do it too.
I love those moments.
It's just funny because like it used to be, and I think this goes with age. It used to be you wanted to be out and about with friends. Yeah. Doing the thing, and then the older you get, you're just freaking tired. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, I just want to sit down for one. I want to sit down. I want to watch the dog run around, and do nothing. That's what I want to do. And you call that isolation all you want. But the other part of isolation for me, and this is not family isolation, this is just getting away from this freaking world that we're in right now, is when I come home Friday, I try not to go back to town till Monday morning. I'm like, I don't want to. And then when 6 o'clock Friday night rolls around and my wife goes, "Hey, let's go to town and get something to eat," I literally almost throw a temper tantrum because I'm like, I don't want to. I'm done with people, and
there's nothing wrong with, and the moments, what you're talking about there, I would say that would be more self-care and reflective, not necessarily isolating. And so that can be very healthy activities to do, especially if you're overstimulated. So sometimes if you get overstimulated, you do just need some quietness, a break, and that can actually be a very healthy activity. I look at it more of isolation when, hey, they are not getting out whatsoever any day of the week. That's when it's more problematic.
Right. Absolutely.
Or they used now friends or family members are concerned because it's like, hey, we used to go out and we used to do some things, and now we're not doing any of those things.
Right.
That's when I would be more concerned.
And you're being more avoidant. You're not like, no, where you're just like, and you're almost to the point of starting a fight about it and being adamant about it.
Or just like if every single day I don't have the energy, one couple of days here or there, which is like, I'm really tired and I need to rest. That's fine. But if it's been a month since we have done anything enjoyable, that's problematic.
Yeah, exactly. We're all tired. We're all stressed. All the things are happening, but guess what? Get out of the house. It's not good for you. Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, no, it's really strange. And I know you see this every day in your work, but it's really strange, the human brain, the way that it reacts and how, and I guess this means this is where you'll have a job forever. Every human brain is completely different. They're all the same, but they're all completely different. We all have our own BS that we're dealing with. We all have daddy issues. We all have mommy issues. We all have issues, right? And the thing is, it's pinpointing your issue and saying, okay, this is my issue. These are my triggers. This is what I need to work on.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to quote a little scripture here, which I don't know scripture, but I'm going to, we're not perfect. We're made in the image of perfection, but we're not perfect. And we're not meant to be perfect. We were born in sin. And guess what? We're just doing the best we can with what we got. Fortunately for somebody like yourself who is trained in understanding how people talk, their mannerisms, what they're telling you and what they're not telling you, like avoidance in therapy, you can talk about that as well. That takes a special skill. So what made you want to get into doing this as a thing?
Good job asking what instead of why.
Now, I tried. I'm thinking.
Well, I'm an extrovert by nature, and my initial degree in at my university was a very more isolating degree, and I was struggling with my mood and mental health through that stretch with how isolated the work was. I wasn't really kind of interacting with people all that much. And so I just kind of fell into psychology. I took an intro to psychology class. I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And I get to work with people. And so that's, it just kind of grew and grew and grew, honestly. Looking back when I first started college to where I am now, I would have zero expectation that I'd ever be in this place when I first started college. So it's, I would say God led me down his path that he wanted me to take.
Absolutely. Because now the path isn't straight. We know that. That path ain't going to be straight.
I took lots of turns in there, a whole lot of turns in there.
Yes. And I feel like it's very similar to my path. Obviously, our paths are completely different, me being a plumber by trade. But what I've learned in the years that I've been doing this is I really like to help people.
Yeah.
I like to problem solve.
Yeah.
I like to fix things. Sometimes well, sometimes not so well, but it depends. And I like to help people. And when And the thing, like I went to a job this morning actually, and they had 2 other plumbers come to their house and try and fix something, and they couldn't get it. And this thing's been leaking or whatever for months now. And so finally they called me out, and I said something that they had never heard before. And I was like, okay, the way that they're doing this is incorrect. Now, hopefully they're licensed plumbers. Hopefully they know what they're doing, but they're not doing this correctly. I'm going to show you, the homeowner who could care less, right? I'm going to show you the correct way to do it. And that's not me trying to be big-headed. That is me saying I have the skills to do this. And whenever I fixed the job in, 10, 15 minutes, whatever it took me, and they were like, wow, the last plumber was here for 2 hours trying to fix that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, well, I had to fix his problem and then make it better as well, and did it in a timely fashion. So it just goes to show, like, having that drive and initiative to do a little better is pretty rewarding. And it's, I don't know. It just helping those people when they're like, wow, nobody else could do this and you did it. It makes you feel good. It gives you some pride in that, which obviously pride can be a sin as well. You don't want to be too proud, but at the same time, you want to have respect and all that. But I say all that to say, going down the path you go down, it sometimes isn't what you started out with, but
Absolutely.
then you realize, hey, this is a thing. I think I can do this. And guess what? If I can make a little money, which, we all know that a little money, if I can make a little money, then maybe this will be a thing. And it's just really cool to see how, not only with myself, but with you, how that has kind of evolved. And now I wouldn't say we're thriving, but we're not broke.
Yeah, exactly. even within the field of psychology, I have changed multiple different times of where I wanted to focus. And so, I mean, just in the, I was in college for 12 years. And there was many different career paths that I was taking along my journey in that. And so I often tell folks, I know I'm not going to be the right person for every individual that comes into my office. And I think that's kind of what helps ease some pressure off of me, is I know that I don't have to be a perfect psychologist. If I just want to plant the seed and make a person feel safe and okay with sharing these things. And if I'm not hitting kind of the right notes, or if I'm not hitting the right topics and they need to change to another provider, I'm more than okay with that. Yeah. Because you're not going to be for everybody. And that's okay. And because I will tell you, full transparency on my end too, I've been to a number of different therapists, because you have to find the right one. Is that correct? And so, like, personality style, all those things is really important.
I saw one therapist for, I don't know, a couple of years, not all the time, just, whenever. And talking to him was like talking to your grandpa. Right. He was just easy to talk to, but like, we didn't talk about anything that mattered. Like, I got like all this baggage I'm carrying around with me. Can I unload some of this here?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh no, I'm going to heap on. Yeah. I saw your brother-in-law the other day, and like, he's violating HIPAA laws, obviously, but like, but
as long as he's not telling your brother-in-law that he saw you.
No, that's true. That is true. But I'm sure he is, though. They. But then I saw another therapist, totally different. Got straight to the meat and taters of it. And was like, we're good. This is your problem. This is what you need to work on. Slap me around a little bit, and I'll go fix it. So I have one more whiskey topic, and then we'll get into some other things. I feel like we're flowing really good. I don't want to break it off. But I recently did an episode about, is it a whiskey collection or obsession? Right. Okay. So, is there a connection between whiskey collection and a desire for control, identity, or status? And then I have another question.
I
after.
think it's if you're sharing that with other people, or if you're posting those things, right, then that's a status thing.
Mhm.
Um, but if you're getting anxious about, oh, I have to have this whiskey,
Mm.
and things feel off, or if they don't feel correct unless you get that newest one, that's a little bit more of potentially a control thing along with the status issue.
Right, right.
Um,
That goes into my second question. Can obsessively hunting bottles or chasing down unicorns be a distraction from deeper emotional work?
yeah, it can. If you're really diligent about, hey, I'm going to allot this amount of time and this amount of money, and
Mhm.
you're really kind of careful with how you do that, then hunting those bottles, that can be a fun hobby, and
Yeah.
I have no issue with that. Absolutely, and I've done that myself, right? But if it's kind of like I end up sacrificing time away from other people or other
Mhm.
activities that were important in my life at some point, where now all I'm doing that's more obsessive, and that can become problematic because
Right.
you've then isolated yourself a whole
Mhm.
lot.
Mhm.
And it could be your sense of, well, this isn't just right, or somebody is not going to see me the same way if I don't get this one. Then those are some concerning thoughts right there.
Right.
And
Right.
I know people have had those moments,
Yeah.
and they've had those difficulties. And so if you're kind of recognizing that of, man, I've kind of my friend, I'm not hanging out with my friends anymore because all I'm doing is just going to different going by myself to different liquor stores, or I'm just online all the time, and I'm sacrificing my sleep because I'm just searching. That's problematic.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, oh my God, where was it? I lost it. Oh, okay. Here it is. What are some healthier ways men can regulate their emotions without feeling like they're giving up on their masculinity?
I mean, I would say sometimes, to regulate your emotions, you have to take that time out. And
Mm.
so it's important to take a time out, especially if you're having some more intense emotions, because the moment, if you're getting to that point where I'm just trying to win the argument right there, then you're not hearing that other person, and nobody's making any progress. So
Right.
being able to like tell on yourself, hey, I'm not hearing you right now. Um, my emotions are too high, that I'm not kind of communicating really effectively, and
Hmm.
I'm just saying some hurtful things. I need to go outside. I need to go to another room. I need to do something instead of
Hmm.
just, how am I going to win this argument? I need to do something that's going to get me my brain active, my hands active, some things like that. That can be really good to regulate those emotions. And then you need to have that person that you're able to come back to and talk like, and I think a big thing what guys need to do is just acknowledge,
Mm.
hey, yeah, I shouldn't have said that. Hey, I kind of let my emotions get real hot, and then that is my bad, instead of looking for, you did this, that's why I responded this way.
Yep. Yep.
You just have to kind of acknowledge and take accountability, I think, is a big thing that guys need to work on.
Right. Because it turns into a thing. And I say this plainly, but sometimes maybe it's not. I always make the joke of, don't tell me what to do. You know,
Yeah.
that type of thing, which in turn is a dig. I'm not gonna lie. I try not to say it as much anymore because I can see how it could be hurtful. Because as a grown baby man, right, I do not want people to tell me what to do. But at the same time, when I am self-destructing, obviously, did going way overboard and overstimulated or whatever the outcome is fixing to happen, and I don't recognize, and I can only speak for myself, obviously, and you don't recognize, hey, I'm fixing to blow or
Yeah.
something's fixing to happen, and if you don't regulate
Correct.
yourself and say, hey, this is fixing to happen.
Yeah.
That's a good time to isolate. Think in your thoughts. And I also wrote down, like people say to count to 10 or to, do deep breathing or something like that. I will say this, and this is when it's really hard, and this is probably when we need to do it the most. Get on your knees, boys. Get on your knees and pray. That's the best thing you can do right there, is when you're feeling anger, when you're feeling frustration and borderline hatred for whatever the conversation you're dealing with. Give it to the Lord, because you will not understand how fast it will be taken away from you. We hold on to so much. We're like collectors. We just collect all this bad juju from everybody, and it just builds up on us. And you know what? When we give it to the Lord, it goes away, and we don't have to worry about it. And it's really cool. But even I know nobody. I mean, the best pastors in the world, they don't do it. We all hold on to it. I think it's just a trait, that is inherent in us, that we just kind of hold on to all this negativity, and it's killing us. It's what it's doing is it's killing us. And the longer we hold on to all this bad in our life and not look at the good, you have a healthy family, you're healthy, you have all of these things going for you, but yet we always look at the plank in our brother's eye, or the plank in our own eye. Sometimes if we want to be self-deprecating, right? We always want to look at that. We don't ever want to look at things positively. And unfortunately, and I'll say this, unfortunately, whiskey doesn't help. It's a downer. Unfortunately, and so it doesn't make it better. it just numbs that pain for a second. And but
it never, like, if you're doing that too often, with the same topic, then you're just avoiding a whole lot. It doesn't go away. It stays there. And a word that I like to think a lot about is balance.
Yes.
So trying to keep that in mind. Am I balanced? Where am I balanced? Where am I like off balance and things like that? Because if you're thinking about balance, then it's helping to improve your awareness, your mindfulness. And if guys do more of that, then they start to regulate better.
Absolutely. And that brings me to another one. And I'm sure you talk about this quite a bit, and I don't know how deep you go into it or not, but generational cycles, how today's men raise boys differently than the next generation does, so that my son doesn't have to carry that emotional weight that I had to carry. I don't want to raise my kids that way. That's what we all said that as children. I'm not going to raise my kids like my parents raised me. How can we do that?
So it's easy. Like, those things are modeled. So we're not always intentionally doing those same things. I mean, I've been guilty of doing things that were modeled to me with my son. And you know what? I've also then had to try to break that cycle by acknowledging to him, hey, I should not have said that. That was completely wrong. And showing him how to take accountability and try to make amends with somebody in a genuine way, and not just have a reason or an excuse for it.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I definitely get into some of the generational aspects. And this is just me personally. Like, some mental health providers, they like to go much more, but in depth in those things. I really try to focus on your past as it relates to today.
Okay.
And so if things that have happened in your past, if they keep coming up today, then we need to deal with some of those things that happened in the past. But if it's like, I've known some people that have had some really terrible things happen to them in their past, but by me kind of interacting with them and assessing, like, they have dealt with that in a healthy way, and it's not necessarily coming up all that much today.
Right.
Then we don't have to talk about those things.
Right. Exactly. Well, and that's the thing. You don't have to bring up everything, like you don't have to word vomit your
No.
entire life from start to finish or start to where it is today, because some of those things, your mind and your body just kind of like said, you know what, that sucks. We're going to compartmentalize it. And then eventually we're just going to deal with it, and it's going to be okay. And it's going to make us stronger. We're going to have resilience. We're going to have, intestinal
Resilience is a big word there.
Yeah, it is. So, and this goes into my next question, which I feel like we're jiving so much, bro. What does emotional literacy look like for men who have never had it growing up?
Oh, wow. That's
I'll use my personal experience.
Solid question there.
My father was never there for me.
Yeah.
I saw him 2 times in my entire life. And both times he was so drunk that he couldn't even stand up. And so that's not a role model. And now I have male role models in my life today.
That's what I was
and I've had them in the past.
Yeah.
But at the same time, how do we get past that if you don't have the model for that emotional regulation, because if you come up and this might be a deeper conversation than we can get into, but if you don't have stability, is it just your mind dealing and coping, and then eventually like let's say both of your parents or whoever was raising you were not stable at all, and it was a very toxic environment.
That for sure happens.
Yes, and so how do you in your later years become emotionally stable?
Well, some of that is coming to and talking to a person like myself.
Right.
Some of it is are you in a healthy romantic relationship where hey, we're able to kind of like talk through and discuss some things, and we're not having big outbursts. If you're having big outbursts, then you need to come talk to somebody. And I think every guy should have like we talked about this before, but either a small group of friends, and every guy should really have a mentor. At various stages in your life, we need mentors. Even like when we have graduated and we've left the house and you don't have those parents, you need to go out and through church or another group, like find somebody where, hey, that person looks like they're doing some good things. They're caring for their family and their friends. And let me just kind of go and ask questions, because I know I'm not going to have it. And they might have some answers, and they might be able to like be honest and tell me, hey, you need to kind of go this direction a little bit. You're getting a little bit off course there.
Right. And I think that, and not to go too far off on a tangent with this, but I think that's how the original church was. You had what you would call the elders were just the older people. They had more wisdom, and with wisdom, that's life experience. And they're like, hey, I made that same mistake that you're making right now. I made that mistake, and it did not turn out well for me. Not saying it's not going to turn out well for you, but that didn't turn out well for me.
You got to be aware of it, right? Hey, be cautious with that, right?
Be cautious, because
that just like opens up your eyes and ears to then, I need to do some self-reflection and be aware there. Absolutely.
And like it says as well, it does take a village to raise a family. You know what I mean? And we haven't even talked about being a dad.
Oh, no.
And I will tell you, or being a husband even. We're just talking about the male perspective.
Correct.
But I can tell you from personal experience, and then you can put your 2 cents in as well. Being a husband makes it easier, because I do have, like you said, that romantic person that I can literally confide 100% with, and that soft place to land, right? At the end of the day, I can just and give it away, right? And God bless the wives out there. Like, seriously, God bless them for taking all of our junk and just being like, okay, give me that. We're gonna put it. Okay, you don't need none of this anymore. And it's just that I know my wife has been a blessing to me for as long as we've been together, which has been a long time. But then moving on to children, Your children look at you like I have a daughter who's going to be a senior this year. And so as of 2 weeks from now, she'll be 18 or whatever. And it's a next chapter in my life or in her life or in our life. And it's really cool. It's scary. It's weird. But at the same time, like as a father and as a man, I'm like, I didn't do enough. There's no way. She is not ready. She is not.
I think
she can't even unload the dishwasher.
You're gonna feel that way no matter what you have done.
Absolutely. And I will tell you this, I don't claim to be the best father, but I claim to be here and a present. Yeah. Well, I'm obviously not here right now talking to you, but I claim to be here. And that's
exactly what you need to be.
Yeah.
And if you've done that, then you've been a good parent.
Yeah. Well, and it's not only that. It's we learn so much from our children, from their innocence and from the crazy things they come up with and they say to you. But then also like our children are wise in different ways.
Yeah.
And they teach us things that we're for one, they teach us to be kids.
Yeah.
And they teach us to not care. Like, who cares? Just do this now. Do the thing now that we're doing. Be present. It teaches us to be present in the moment. Whereas I hate to say this, but like as a responsible parent and husband, you are constantly, your head is constantly on a swivel. You're checking the doorway. You're making sure everybody's safe. You're making sure everybody's well fed, has a clean place to live. You're constantly worried about that. And your kids are just like, hey, let's eat some candy. Let's it doesn't matter. Let's go. And you have to learn to just be like, you're right. You know what? You're right. I'm stressing way too much about this. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And that's one of the cool things about being a father is just the amount of wisdom I have gained from them. And then you can tell your part. I'm sure it's fairly similar.
So with my kids, it's really been a lot of you were saying in the moment. I've really tried to be in the moment, and having awareness of those moments is really important. And I think that's helped me grow a whole lot more as a parent and as a father. Patience is a big one there too. And one thing that I've really had to work on, and this is just me personally, like with my son, who is very strong-willed, is I don't always have to be right.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So, that's hard.
And it's okay that even if I'm right, like in that moment, I don't necessarily always have to prove to him that I am right.
Right. Yeah. But that's an ego check, isn't it?
It is an ego check. And some of it is just like having the awareness. It's like, man, if I let him sometimes think that what he said was really interesting and I didn't know that, and he taught me something, that's going to grow his confidence, and that's going to grow and deepen our relationship.
Absolutely. I can tell you from personal experience, my son knows more about baseball statistics and things like that. And football. I don't even know the players he's talking about. I'm like, what? Who is that? He needs to be a sports announcer. I told him that. But he's like, did you know, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't even know who that is. So no, but thank you. Now I do. And so it's really letting them just explain to you what's going on in their crazy head right now. And it's a lot of fun because like I said, they come up with some weird things to tell you. So, all right. So I got a couple more questions, and these are a little hard hitting. These are questions for the audience as well that I feel like they could kind of reflect on and see if somebody either in their circle or maybe themselves is dealing with. So here's the first one. If someone suspects a friend of using whiskey to numb the pain, how do they start that conversation without shame?
I think you go, hey man, if you're noticing that your friend is having some struggles with that, then that means that you've been around that person quite a bit. And hopefully during that time, you have established like enough of a relationship to where, hey, I'm going to share some things with you. This is not in any way to be a dig at you, but I have concerns because I care about you and I enjoy spending time with you. And I think some of this might be starting to get in the way a little bit, and we need to talk about that, or you need to talk about it with somebody else if you don't want to talk about that with me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a super hard conversation, right? Because
it is.
Obviously, you do. Go ahead.
If you approach that with sincerity and I think non-judgment, and you can be like, hey, I could be off on this. So if you like allow them to correct or to kind of give you some feedback, then again, hey, I don't always have to be right there.
Right. Well, and I know that, and this will talk about alcoholism a little bit. I know that alcoholism in itself can have very familiar signs, right? There are big markers in it, but there's also very subtle ones that you don't know. Like there's the term functioning alcoholic, right? These people in daily life, they look like they're doing okay, but they're not, obviously.
I really don't like that term, honestly, though.
I don't either. I don't because
they're not functioning in every aspect.
No, they're not. And it almost puts it up on a pedestal, like we were talking about earlier. Yeah. It makes it, oh, he's functioning, he's fine. But you're not. If you're using it as a crutch, like we've been talking about. And again, guys, I don't want you to think that I'm belittling you for drinking. I'm not, because I still want to enjoy a dram. I know you do as well.
I do too.
I don't want you guys to think that you're doing the wrong thing. But if some of these things are making you a little uncomfortable, or they're triggering you, or maybe that's a reason that you need to maybe check that and talk to somebody about it. If not a buddy, a therapist, or somebody like that, your spouse, a good friend, your parents, whoever, talk to somebody about it. So my last question is a pretty hard one. What would you say? I'm going to try and get through it. What would you say to the man listening to this right now? Sitting alone with a glass in his hand, feeling like nobody would understand him or what he's going through. Sorry, man. Woo.
No, that's obviously you have emotion there because you care.
Well, yeah, that's the whole reason I'm doing this show.
If you're alone doing that, and that's kind of where everything feels like I've just got me in this glass and there's nothing else outside of that. There are people that want to be in your life. There are people that want to connect with you. There are people that want to help you through this.
Absolutely. And it's so sad to see, like, and you, I mean, I know you've seen it multiple times, but I've seen it just in my, not in my life, but in my circle as well. Like, once people go down that road, then all of a sudden, like, broken family, then they're even worse, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse until they're literally,
I mean, it can feel like it's getting worse if you keep doubling down and not just kind of acknowledging, hey, I'm losing all these things, and I don't have to have an ego about that, and I don't have to feel like everybody is trying to beat me up, because if you come honestly to a relationship, hey, I'm struggling with this, or hey, I think I have some concerns, there will be people out there that, like, I'm glad that you're bringing this up because we've worried about you.
Right. And if people aren't worried about you, you need new friends. If you're at that spot right there, because if it's that bad for you, you got to do something. Life is way too precious for you to just be wasting it away.
If all you have in your life is a bunch of yes guys, you need some other people people in your life.
Absolutely. You need people to challenge you. You need people to tell you no, do something different, get you out of your comfort zone, because, we can't, this gets onto other topics, but it's fine. We can't live this world like it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? We have to live this world, live in this world with purpose, and it makes me super sad, because I know there's so many people out there that are just going through their day-to-day ritualistic, mundane life, typing on a computer, going to the house, typing on a computer, scrolling through the Facebooks, chugging beers all night, whatever they're doing. And it's not just alcohol, it's drugs, it's porn, it's all of the things. They're doing all of the things. They're avoiding, they're abusive, there's so many addictions that we haven't even talked about. Obviously we're whiskey, so we're talking about that, but like there's so many things out there with just mental health. Just try and be as healthy as possible, and you're never going to be 100% ever, because this is it's a broken world we live in, and there's constant bombardment of buy, sell, obey, do this, follow this new trend, drink this new tequila. I promise it doesn't have bad stuff in it, like all of that. Like it hurts my heart, but at the end of the day, I feel like people like you and I, who are willing to put our necks out on the line and say, there is another way. There is another way, and we are here to help. Because, man, nobody needs to go through life alone. Mm-hmm. And I know I've said it multiple times in the past. If you're struggling, please get help. Get help. You can contact me, contact a therapist, anything. Just please. I will have.
And you can take your time on getting help too.
Oh, like absolutely.
If you're intimidated with a mental health professional, that person should go at your pace, and you can just be honest about that. Like, hey, I need a little bit of time to kind of get warmed up, and that if that's the right person for you, they will hear that, understand that, and they will go at your pace.
So let's talk about something that I guess some people might not talk about. Therapy is not cheap. So is there any sort of programs out there to help people who maybe can't financially afford therapy?
I mean, there's the online programs, and those tend to be a little bit cheaper there.
Right.
Also, if you're in a city where there is a university and that university has a graduate program in psychology, in counseling psychology, very often they will have a training clinic.
Oh, okay.
And so you can go to that training clinic. Oftentimes it's open to the public, and you can get somebody that is working on their graduate degree that is supervised by a licensed mental health provider, and you can get treatment very cheap that away. And those people are really looked at closely. They're examined to make sure that they're providing safe and appropriate care for you.
Right. You're not just talking to some hobo under the bridge.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's an avenue there too that I don't think a lot of people are always aware of. It's just, hey, if you're in a city or near a city where there's a university that has that, then there could be some resources there.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that is it. So what I'm going to do on this episode specifically, I'm going to have the numbers to crisis people and suicide hotline, all of the things, AA, all, and I know nobody wants to have those. I get it. This is a touchy subject. I get that. But at the same time, who else is going to talk about it? Right? Somebody has to talk about these things. And if I have to be the guy, I'll be the guy.
Well, you can enjoy whiskey and also have good mental health.
Absolutely. And here's, there was even some questions I had in there that were talking about, can whiskey improve your mental health and stuff? I don't even want to go there, because then it puts it on that pedestal again. Yeah. I don't want I don't want it to be like, oh, it's a cure-all. No, it's not. It's a crutch is what it is. Used the wrong ways, obviously. But I don't know. It's, to me, this conversation needs to be had. I'm glad it was had. I think more of these conversations need to be had. I wish there was specific topics that we could just deep dive, and maybe we can in the future. I'd love to have you back on, and we can maybe talk about something maybe a little more lighthearted as well, but also, like, one specific thing we could talk about that, because we don't talk about, and we can touch on this for a second, but like, think about the people in the industry, in the whiskey industry, and how they're having to consume and be around all of that alcohol all day long. That, I'm sorry, but that can't be good for you. Even if you're spitting, I don't care. Like, just the fumes of it, just the, like it just, and a job is a job. I get that. A job is a job. And at the end of the day, you go home. But if your job is to drink whiskey all day and then you go home and drink whiskey too, it's kind of like, it's kind of one of those things where I can see how dependency will creep in pretty fast in those places.
Yeah.
In those places. But that's a whole nother show. I can't thank you enough, Psych Man, for coming on here and dropping the truth on us.
I thoroughly enjoy all of your podcasts and your episodes. So just watching those, even though they're about whiskey, they bring some enjoyment. I will do that during my lunch breaks, just where I'm not necessarily thinking about mental health stuff. It gives me kind of a moment to have some fun, have some laughs and things like that. So thanks for,
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, because I try to present things in a certain way to where they're entertaining and yet informational. And I know some of them are very informational, which can get a little bit, I heard, boring one time, but anyway, I like
your nerd stuff.
So do I, but it's not for everybody. And I get that. But I hope that this helps. If I helped one person with doing this show right here, I and I know Psychman did our job. If we can help in any way, please contact us. Contact one of the links down below, because we want everybody to be healthy in this, not only in whiskey, but in mental health. And we are uplifting men's mental health, but it is mental health in general. Kids, women, elderly, it doesn't matter. Alien, whatever you are, you would just be mentally healthy, right? And wash your hands. But anyway, stick on, Psych Man. I want to talk to you for a minute, but y'all be good. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. And yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. All right. Until next time, keep your spirits up.
Amen.
Peace out. All right, here's the closing monologue. If you're still listening, I'm going to try and get through it. As we wrap up the conversation, I want to speak directly to the men out there listening. The ones who have carried the weight on their shoulders for far too long. The ones who have stared into the glass looking for peace, for the answers, or for just a little silence. Whiskey has a way of slowing time. It gives us a moment to breathe, to reflect, to sit with what's real. But it can also become a mask, something we hide behind to get if life gets too loud. This isn't about blame. This is about being honest with ourselves. Strong doesn't mean silent. Brave doesn't mean numb. And healing, it doesn't mean weakness. It means choosing to feel again. Sorry. If something we said today hit home, don't ignore it. Don't pour over it. Sit with it. Talk to somebody. Reach out. You're not alone. You're not. There is a brotherhood out there that goes deeper than the tasty notes and the bottle hunts. It's about being human. It's about being whole. And if no one told you lately, you matter. Your story matters.
and you deserve to feel peace without having to drink it. Until next time, be good to yourself and be good to each other. Cheers. Love you guys.